Investigators in the Nancy Guthrie case zero in on a key detail. The Texas Supreme Court weighs a case regarding gender surgeries that could send ripples nationwide. And SpaceX sends another crew to the International Space Station. I'm Georgia Howe with Daily Wire Executive Editor John Bickley. It's Friday, February 13th, and this is Evening Wire. Investigators in the Nancy Guthrie case are zeroing in on a key detail: a black Ozark Trail backpack seen in newly released surveillance footage. Daily Wire reporter Lyndon Blake has the latest.
The FBI's Phoenix office says the masked suspect was carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a brand sold exclusively at Walmart. Law enforcement experts say investigators can subpoena Walmart for purchase records and review store surveillance video to identify anyone who bought that specific backpack in the Tucson area. Meanwhile, President Trump was asked today why the FBI hasn't formally taken over the case. Here's what he had to say.
Well, they took it over originally. It was a local case originally, and they didn't want to let go of it, which is fine. It's up to them. It's really up to the community. But ultimately, when the FBI got involved, I think, progress has been made.
Nancy Guthrie remains missing after 13 days as the search continues to intensify.
Inflation cooled more than expected to start the year, offering relief to consumers and policymakers alike. The Consumer Price Index rose 2.4% in January compared to a year ago, down from 2.7% in December. Core inflation, which includes food and energy, edged down to 2.5%. Energy prices fell, housing costs rose modestly, and food increases were limited. The report comes as the Federal Reserve weighs whether to hold interest rates steady amid tariff impacts and mixed economic signals. Most analysts expect the Fed to pause again in March, watching closely for signs that inflation is continuing to drift toward its 2% target. Acting President of Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, had her first interview with an American journalist on Thursday. Rodriguez told NBC News about her willingness to work with the Trump administration, confirming discussions about Venezuela's oil sector after U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright visited Caracas and reported strong early cooperation. But when asked about her predecessor, Nicolas Maduro, as well as the future of political freedom in Venezuela, Rodriguez said this.
So yes, I can tell you that President Nicolás Maduro is the legitimate president. They are both, President Maduro and Cilia Flores, the First Lady, are both innocent. Also, we will have elections in this country, fair and free, of course, as stated in the Constitution. The time frame for the elections will be marked and decided by the political dialogue in this country.
The Texas Supreme Court is weighing a case that could reshape how gender transition malpractice lawsuits are handled nationwide. Daily Wire investigative reporter Megan Brock has the story.
Justices heard arguments over whether detransitioner Sereno Daco filed her lawsuit within Texas' 2-year statute of limitations. A lower court ruled the clock started ticking when Daco's therapist wrote her a surgical recommendation letter, not when she underwent a double mastectomy at age 19. Her attorney argued a negligence claim can't begin until there's actual physical harm, calling the case part of a broader medical scandal. Texas lawmakers are pushing to extend the statute of limitations to 10 years for those who've been harmed by gender medicine. If the court sides with Daco, it could open the door for more detransitioners across the country to sue.
New information has come to light regarding the motive of the trans-identifying male who opened fire at a small school in British Columbia. Daily Wire reporter Tim Pierce has the latest.
Police say the 18-year-old shooter first killed his mother and 11-year-old stepbrother at home before driving to Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where he opened fire, killing 5 students and a teacher. A surviving student says he believes the gunman went to the school to finish off his remaining siblings, who were inside at the time. The suspect later took his own life. At least 25 others were injured. Authorities continue to investigate the motive behind the attack.
A beloved former Team USA skater was shot and killed on Tuesday at a Starbucks drive-thru in St. Louis, Missouri. Gabrielle Linehan, a 28-year-old former Team USA synchronized skater and coach, was approached in her car and held up at gunpoint. The suspect can be seen on surveillance footage approaching her car in a reflective vest, ordering her to raise her hands and firing. The suspected gunman is 58-year-old Keith Lamont Brown, who was out on parole for a prior robbery and is currently wanted in connection with other shootings. His rap sheet of other offenses dates back to the 1980s. Linehan was rushed to a nearby hospital where she was pronounced dead. President Trump pardoned 5 former NFL players on Thursday for crimes including drug trafficking, dog fighting, and counterfeiting. Crane and Cone co-host David Cohn has the details.
Among those pardoned was former New York Jets Hall of Fame defensive tackle Joe Klecko and star Houston Oilers and Oakland Raiders halfback Billy Cannon, who died in 2018. The other 3 former players granted clemency were Dallas Cowboys offensive tackle Nate Newton, Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens running back Jamal Lewis, and Buffalo Bills running back Travis Henry. A statement from Trump's pardon czar reads, quote, "As football reminds us, excellence is built on grit, grace, and the courage to rise again. So is our nation," unquote. All of the former players who received pardons from Trump had already served prison sentences. The president's pardons now clear their criminal records.
This episode is sponsored by Brickhouse Nutrition. You've probably heard about those weight loss injections that everyone's been talking about, and for good reason. The results can be pretty incredible. They work by helping regulate blood sugar and keeping your appetite in check. But here's the thing. Not everyone wants to deal with weekly injections, especially when you start hearing about some of the side effects that can come with them. That's where Lean comes in. It's a weight loss supplement developed by doctors, and people are seeing some really impressive results. The ingredients in Lean are backed by research showing that they can help lower blood sugar, turn stored fat into energy, and reduce those constant cravings that make dieting so hard. This stuff is no joke. I am one of those people that eats sometimes a lot when I'm stressed. But once Lean came into the picture, I was able to rein in my cravings. Let's get you started with 20% off and free rush shipping so you can add Lean to your healthy diet and exercise plan. Visit TakeLean.com and enter WIRE for your discount. That's promo code WIRE at TakeLean.com today.
19 Republican attorneys general are calling on the DOJ to investigate over 150 U.S.-based climate nonprofits for over $2 billion in foreign funding. Daily Wire senior editor Joel Needler has more.
In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the group alleges that 5 foreign climate foundations funneled money into American advocacy groups to influence U.S. energy policy, potentially without registering under the Foreign Agents Registration Act. The attorneys general argue there is, quote, substantial evidence the funds supported coordinated activism, litigation, research, and lobbying campaigns aimed at curbing domestic fossil fuel development and reshaping U.S. energy policy. At least one of the foreign foundations, they say, has documented ties to the Chinese Communist Party. The DOJ has not yet indicated whether it will open a formal investigation.
2 U.S. Navy ships collided near South America on Wednesday, with minor injuries reported. The destroyer USS Truxtun collided with a support ship during ship-to-ship refueling. U.S. Southern Command said that 2 sailors experienced minor injuries and that both vessels remain seaworthy following the incident. No reports yet as to the cause of the collision. Ship-to-ship resupplies are common in naval operations, and while the Navy does own the supply vessels, they're often crewed by civilians. A former U.S. Navy serviceman discharged for refusing the COVID vaccine has been reinstated. David Berry, an aviation boatswain's mate, was involuntarily discharged in July of 2022 after refusing the vaccine, citing safety concerns and objections to the use of fetal cell lines in testing. After President Trump signed Executive Order 14184 to offer reinstatement to service members, Berry collaborated with the Navy's reinstatement team to rejoin the fleet. He also received full back pay and 3 years of active duty credit. Berry's case is part of a broader federal initiative to restore the honor of thousands of service members impacted by the 2021 vaccine mandate. The FDA blocked Moderna's new flu shot, and now the Wall Street Journal says some career staffers are upset. Daily Wire assistant editor Andy Valdez reports.
In a meeting in January, FDA staff voiced their concerns over Vinay Prasad, head of the agency's vaccines and biologics divisions, rejecting the shot, but their objections were overruled. Prasad says Moderna's test for the new vaccine did not fully assess how high dosages might affect elderly patients, leading him to reject their application without review. FDA Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary has also said Moderna's trial testing was, quote, unethical. An HHS spokesman explained that Moderna, quote, exposed participants age 65 and over to increased risk of severe illness by giving them a substandard of care against the recommendation of FDA scientists.
Doctors are warning of increased cases of rare malnutrition diseases possibly associated with GLP-1 weight loss drugs. One particular condition, a vitamin C deficiency, commonly known as scurvy, has been increasingly reported in patients who took Ozempic and other weight loss drugs. While GLP-1 drugs can lead to weight loss and decreased appetite, patients who do not maintain an adequate diet can experience serious consequences. Claire Collins, a professor of nutrition at the University of Newcastle, Australia, highlighted that a reduction in body weight does not automatically mean that a person is well-nourished or healthy. And
liftoff. Go Falcon, go Dragon, and Godspeed Crew 12.
SpaceX successfully launched its Crew 12 mission to the International Space Station today, a little after 5 a.m. Eastern, from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. A Falcon 9 rocket carried a crew of 4 astronauts for an 8-month stint in space. In addition to space station maintenance, the crew is tasked with advancing preparations for human exploration beyond Earth's orbit. The journey to the space station is approximately 34 hours. Those are your drive home updates this evening. To learn more about these stories, go to dailywire.com. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Morning Wire.